Hey everyone, it's 27th of February 2017, and I'm in St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, and I'm here with Mike Samson. Thanks for having me, man.
Oh man, thank you for coming.
So there's a bit of history with Mike and I. It goes all the way back to 5.5 years now.
Yeah, at least.
If you've been following along, so on my blogs way back, I posted about how I got into martial arts. And so I was in martial arts in high school and got out for the whole almost 10 years of Toronto. I did a little bit here, a little bit there. But when I came out here for college, I saw a little flyer for yours. I think it was in the school itself at MI. Said St. John's BJJ and Judo.
Yeah, we had some at the university and at the Marine Institute and the College of North Atlantic. And actually the most people we got were usually from the institute and the college. We didn't get a lot of university students, but all the college and university were gung-ho.
Yeah, and I think it was an email or something. It wasn't even I don't even think it was the Facebook groups are around back then or so.
Yeah, I think we had a student. One of my students was going to school there and had access to the mailing list. He's like, I'm going to put this out, and that's how we kind of really started advertising through the school. So yeah, it wasn't Facebook or nothing like that.
Yeah.
It was an email list.
Yeah, because I remember having to write something down or take a tab or something to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
The rest is history. I trained here. I guess it was another club, a different spot of this club, for a year or so until I graduated, and then. You guys set me in the right direction off to your studio out in Victoria, BC, and now I'm back on my travels. It's kind of proper, right? The first club I started with when I got back into martial arts is my last club that I'm visiting in Canada before I go off to Europe and Asia and all the other wonderful places, right? So it's really great being back here. Like I said, thanks.
Yeah, man, it's been good having you. It's good to see you again. Like I said, we have a history, and I follow your blog, and I'm honestly quite jealous you get to do this. I don't get to travel around as much as I like, but I try when I can.
I can't really try and knock it down. It's pretty great, But I also have I'm a lone wolf, right? I think I have nothing, right? So no family and nothing to worry about. So, let's start with your martial arts experience. How did you get started in martial arts? Because it wasn't Jiu-Jitsu originally, right? Not BJJ originally.
No, it was Jiu-Jitsu. It was called Ninja Jiu-Jitsu. And if any of you who are watching have a military background in Canada, you may or may not have met some of my instructors that I've had over the years. Sensei Jerry Marshall, Dave McIver, Dave Stewart, Jules Lecadol. If I pronounce his name correctly, I apologize. I always mess it up. And some others, Ray Zwicker, and some other guys out there who they founded and ran the Canadian Ninja Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt Fellowship. And it came kind of from Can Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, if you want to read up the history on it, and it's pretty interesting. So there's a big connection there. But they were all mostly connected with the military, and which is how one of them ended up in Gander. So backtracking to how I got into it, like a lot of people, I got that story of I watched the UFC and I saw Hoist Gracie, which is actually true. I was out visiting my aunt in St. John's here, the capital city of Newfoundland, and I was down to rent a movie, and it was between Ghostbusters and UFC, and I always liked fighting when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. So I rented it, and like everyone else's story, this tiny little Brazilian guy chokes everyone out, and I was like, Jiu-Jitsu, that's pretty cool. And I remembered being a Boy Scout, and my Boy Scout instructor taking me to the base in Gander at one point to a Jiu-Jitsu class, and it just vaguely was in my mind, and there was this guy there, and his name was Jerry Marshall. I still keep in contact with him today, and he was a 5th degree black belt in Jiu-Jitsu. And at the time, Jiu-Jitsu to me was Jiu-Jitsu. It didn't Brazilian, Canadian, whatever. And they did a lot of grappling, and it was actually really good. And I remember this guy choking me when I was, like a teenager. And so a couple years later, I thought about it after seeing that, the UFC, and I remember who became my primary instructor, Todd Hodder, who was a swimming coach of mine. That's how I knew him. I remember he was at that class. He was one of the older guys. So I just, got back to town and I called Todd, who didn't really know me at the time other than he was a swimming instructor of mine, and said, hey, you do jiu-jitsu. I want to do that stuff. And he's like, yeah, sure. And he said, I got a class tonight, actually. I took over the club from my instructor, and I'm great. I showed up to class, and after class, I was addicted, and he gave me a ride home because I was just a young guy, and it was raining. And like every doe-eyed new martial artist, I said, so how long does it take to get your black belt? And he kind of laughed, and he's like, oh, it'll take you a few years, kid. And I don't know if he ever thought at the time I was going to stick with it, but I did. And about 6 years later, I guess 5-6 years, I tested for a black belt under Jerry Marshall and the other senior instructors in our association. Todd was my instructor, and as far as I know, I'm the only black belt Todd ever taught. And we also did judo. Todd was a brown belt in judo. So we did jiu-jitsu, we did judo. I competed in judo and loved that. But there was no Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and it took a long time until I found a Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor. I was in university and long past, my teen years, and running my own club even here, teaching jiu-jitsu, teaching judo, and I decided, I really need to bring BJJ into the mix. There's something here I'm missing, and I reached out to Jeff Joslin. I emailed him, I called him, and we had a chat, and he was just one of the nicest individuals that I had reached out to. And he wasn't the first person I called. I called places, and I won't throw names out there. I don't want to bash anyone. I guess it was the culture of the time, and of course they asked, do you have any background? And I said, sure. I do another style of jiu-jitsu, and I do judo, and I got a bit of a not so welcoming vibe. It was more, I got talked down to as if I know anything, and they were going to come in and rewire me. And I don't know, it didn't sit well with me. I mean, I obviously knew BJJ was something I wanted to learn, and I appreciated it, and I didn't need to be sold it. I just needed someone who was willing to come and teach me. So being told that what you know is garbage, and we're going to teach you everything you need to know, I didn't like that. Jeff was totally different. Jeff was all about the fact that I already had a background, and he was asking me questions about it and who I knew, and it was, we were almost instant friends on the phone. So I flew him out for a seminar at my club at the time, and I rolled with Jeff, and my instructor Todd went there. We did a private lesson with him, and it was the first time I saw someone tap out Todd. It was like mind blown, and then I was just getting completely wrecked, and I always thought I was good on the ground, and I just didn't know what way was up. But it was fun. I didn't feel like I was getting just embarrassed or beaten. It was fun. That's the easiest way to describe it. It was one of these things where I was like, this guy's a wizard. And so that was it. Me and Jeff became good friends from there, and stayed connected. And he's coming in now in a few weeks for his 10th, 11th seminar here.
Nice.
Been training with him ever since 2009. I started, I was probably 3 months, and then I flew up there and trained at his club, and I ended up getting graded for a blue belt really quickly. And I had about 16 years experience at that time. And then, it was another couple of years to purple, and then about 5 years to brown. So in the beginning there was a bit of a learning curve that I guess I made a quick jump because I had a good base, and then at or around the mid-range of blue belt, that all kind of evened out, and I was just cruising along with the rest of the guys that friends I made at Jeff's club, and other people in the area, different clubs that I'm friends with, and so it's been a fun ride. It's been 8 years now. Got a brown belt about a year ago, and it's been cool teaching and learning at the same time. And I guess everyone who's teaching is learning. I mean, the coral belts are still learning, I know that. But me, I literally was a BJJ white belt running a BJJ club. And, I had another background, but I was learning all this new stuff and then trying to convey it to other people. And I guess, took a bit of a different approach in that I wasn't the black belt who was light years ahead of everyone. I mean, I had a bit more of a background than everyone I was teaching, but I really enjoyed it. I knew the people in my club enjoyed it, and someone needed to take the reins, so I did. And you know, it's worked out. We've all grown together. I got some excellent students. You know, I'm by no means, like I said, that black belt master who smashes all my students. I got tough purple belt guys who tap me out every week,
Yeah.
and you know, it keeps me humble, keeps me working hard, and it's and I go away to train with Jeff. I bring him down, and I get smashed by him, and I get smashed by his senior guys who are competitors, and everyone's always got a smile on their face and wants to chat after, and you know, a bunch of good friends out of it. And I have a co-instructor here as well, Blair Bradbury. He was one of my judo coaches, along with Todd Hodder. Blair, actually, when we started way back when, Blair sponsored our club. Todd was a brown belt in judo, so Blair was a black belt, and he sponsored our club and came out, and he graded me for my yellow belt in judo, and I believe probably my orange as well. And we, around about the time that we were training with you, me and Blair, you know, he was running a judo club, I was running a jiu-jitsu club, and I used to train at his club sometimes anyway, and we had, you know, been so tight our whole life. Why don't we run the club together? And we really started blending the two, the judo and jiu-jitsu, and the guys who really loved jiu-jitsu started dipping their toes in judo and thinking, hey, this stuff is cool too, and the opposite happened. The judo guys got into BJJ, so most guys, pretty much everyone in my club is working towards or has belts in both judo and jiu-jitsu, and we compete in both when the opportunity is there. It's a very small community of jiu-jitsu and judo people in Newfoundland, so the tournaments don't happen as often as they do in bigger cities. But you know, we do what we can. And yeah, man, just been having a ball. It's great to see it grow. I mean, when you were here, I was teaching you. Like I think I was a blue belt.
You had just got your purple, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
When you left, so yeah, that would have been about 7 years ago now. I mean, it's a long time.
Yeah.
And or no, 6. But it's, you know, it's grown. I mean, and there's a club here in St. John's Republic, BJJ. They're good, you know, good friends with those guys. They're the only club right now with a black belt instructor. There's other clubs you get along with too. The Foley brothers. There's like a martial arts family dynasty here. Great guys. And one of those guys is running a club. He's a brown belt. A couple of the other purple belts, his brothers. Mike, Daniel, Alex, they run clubs. Jason, brown belt, he runs a club. Like, we got a really good community of people here. We got Colin McMichael and George Altine. They're purple belts out on the west coast of the island. There's a couple of purple belts, Corey Avery and Corey Stringer in Clarenville. Like it's moving up here. So, you know, anyone who's watching and you're thinking on visit Newfoundland, you want to drop in and do some jiu-jitsu, there's lots of places around to do it. We don't have the big 400 member clubs with 15 black belts. It's just not here yet, but we always love having people visit. If you're new, come on in, join a class, love to have you. If you're black belt and you got stuff to teach me, hey, get in touch and I'll arrange a seminar and help pay for your trip.
Come in the summer.
No, it's lies. It's beautiful out. The weather here is very tempered. We live here for the weather, of course.
Yeah.
Not to mention the politics. It's great too. But yeah, I guess that's kind of my long-winded story. You know, like everyone, it's been ups and downs in it. Todd, my instructor, I mean, unfortunately, right after we had met Jeff, it was only within a couple of months, he was in a tragic helicopter accident. He passed away. And, you know, he was the person who I started with, and I owe everything to in terms of getting me into martial arts and getting me addicted to it and making me want to move forward and always pushing me to learn from different people. I mean, he never, when I said I was bringing in Jeff Joslin, you know, this BJJ black belt who's supposed, you know, is a UFC guy, Todd didn't have an ego and say, oh, well, you know, I can teach you that. He said, great, can I come too? And you know, we always learned together like that. And and I can imagine he would have, you know, just loved to see where it's gone since and to be a part of it. So, you know, one of the big motivations to keep it going is to know that he would have been here working right alongside of me and have done, you know, even more amazing things that he did when he was alive. So that's the long and short of it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because. As we know, we talked about this before, I also went to a ninja jiu-jitsu school in Petawawa, and that's where it was. It was on Army base, and I was training under Dave Stewart. So we kind of both started in the same kind of path, and then out in BC, it's Steve Hisco, that he runs Camroo. So it's kind of funny that same kind of branch of jiu-jitsu has kind of followed us all this way, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like Dave, I remember when I got graded for my first black belt. I had to spar with him, and he kicked the tar out of me, and he laughed and giggled the whole time he did it, and and then told me how great I did after. And I was like, I don't think I believe you, but he was a great guy.
Yeah, there's nothing more demoralizing than someone who sneaks that jab in and then laughs afterwards when you realize you got caught, and it's like he's laughing after punching me. Yeah, no, but so that was kind of interesting. So when you moved over to or added, I guess, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it was really more about seeing who you can get to come out this way, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, there's a lot of people who I know that's how they found the first instructor, was going to whatever seminars they could go to and asking them to follow them, or videotapes. And I mean, I know there's a bit of a trek to go from St. John's to onto the mainland for bigger places and whatnot. So I guess really it did come down to actually just being able to get someone to come out here and do seminars. Or
yeah, it was that's what it was, finding the right person at the right price. I mean, I said various places in Canada and in the United States, and I had various responses. It's some people who were interested, but they charged too much. They were quoting me like $5,000 plus expenses and all kinds of crazy stuff to come out here. And we're in Newfoundland, not Disneyland. We don't got that kind of cash. And then I hit on some people who, charged a very fair price. And I don't want to throw anyone's, business out there and let it, that's up to them to negotiate with people. But he gave me a very fair price, something I thought was totally reasonable, and has kept that, totally reasonable all through our relationship, enough that it's affordable for us. It makes, it makes part of their business. And they're willing to come here, to come. I mean, like Jeff comes here. Jeff stays in my house. Jeff doesn't ask me to put him up in a fancy hotel. He stays in my house. He hangs out with me and my family. We go out to dinner, and he hangs out with everyone from the club. It's just such that cool, relaxed atmosphere. When we're on the mat, it's business. I know the difference. When I step on the mat, it becomes, now it's not my buddy Jeff. Now it's it's Professor Jeff or Sensei Jeff, however whichever you prescribe to. And when the seminar's over, we let our hair down and we'll go out and we have a bite to eat or something, it's back to your buddy Jeff. And that's the kind of relationship we have, and he has with a lot of my students, and it's great. And he's open to me bringing other people in. I've had Jason Sago was here from PEI. He's a UFC fighter, Hoyler Gracie black belt. He's here last year. I seen a picture post up on my Facebook, and he posted it. One of my friends liked it, and it was Signal Hill. A very historic spot here in St. John's. So I just said, well, I just threw it out there. I messaged him and said, are you in St. John's? He didn't know me. And he said, yeah. I said, cool, I do jiu-jitsu. You want to come teach me a seminar? And like 4 hours later, he's at my club teaching. Like, I never met the guy before in my life. And, I messaged Jeff and said, hey, I got an opportunity to get this Hoyler black belt. Jason Sago, he's in town. He's going to teach for me. Is that cool? He was all excited about it. Go ahead. Like, there was never any competition there. There was always camaraderie, no matter what flag people fly. If it's if it's Alliance, if it's Gracie, Hoyler Gracie, if it's Ribeiro's, whatever. If anyone's in town, we bring them in, and we've been really lucky to do that. I've gone to seminars that the other clubs. We have a Novia Now club here. They bring in Leo Santos, Wagner Fabiano. I've been to their seminars. We have the Foleys here. They've been heavily connected with Pedro Sauer, who you are.
Yeah.
I've been to Pedro Sauer seminar. I've been to Keith Owen seminar. There's been others I haven't been able to go to. They're bringing in Shane Rice, a Hickson black belt, and like a weekend, another week. I might go to that if I can. Everyone here just gets along. It's great, and I think it stems from like the attitude that trickles down from the people we work with. and it's been fantastic. But yeah, back to your question. I mean, it's just been bringing people in, finding someone who's A, willing to come here, B, I can afford, and then you know that we have fun together. And then I've gone out there. I go to Hamilton. I try to go, you know, once a year if I can. Sometimes it's a couple years in between, but I go once, twice a year if I can swing it. Go up and crash
if you're
with
in the Hamilton area, make it out to Jeff Jocelyn's. It's a great place. If you've been watching my video, it's a few episodes back. I interviewed Jeff. When I went through Hamilton. That was a great time. You know, he accepted me, no problem. I was like one of the club members, just walked through the door, and the way we went,
Yeah, everyone up there. I haven't had a bad experience on Jeff's mats. I've had my butt kicked. I've been tapped out a lot in that club, not just by Jeff. I mean, he has some very, very, I don't like to use the word strong, talented and competitive and skilled Jiu-Jitsu competitors and non-competitors, guys who don't compete are still fierce on the mat. I don't like to use the word strong because it kind of makes it sounds like you're saying, oh well, if you weren't 30 pounds heavier than me, whatever, I beat you. But it's not that. There's guys up there who I outweigh by 50 pounds who've kicked my butt. There's guys up there who outweigh me by 50 pounds that kick my butt. It got nothing to do with their bench press. So.
And there's a lot of guys that, I mean, I was there. This is all I do, right? I travel, I train, do interviews. When I was there for that week, and I hit pretty much every class I could. You know, all 3 classes a day, and there's guys that were there pretty much almost all those classes as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're monsters, man. They train like all day.
They're working on top of making all these classes a day, and you know you know, I'm not getting anywhere with those guys. The beasts,
Yeah, they're so fit, and their timing is so good. And when we come in the summer, if you live anywhere in southern Ontario or anywhere that you actually get a summer, and someone from Newfoundland is visiting, we don't get that temperature. So when it's 35 and 40 degrees and you see us dying, it's because we're used to, like, warm for us, hot for us is like 22. Okay? So take pity on us when we're suffering in the heat. It's like totally unbearable to us. Like, come down here in February, we'll roll when it's like -5 and raining and snow.
The last summer I was here, they had that heat wave, and the heat wave was
they got
28. It was 20. It got to 28. It was the heat wave.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Celsius, okay? For those who are out there, my American friends have to do the math to figure out what we're talking about. But yeah, that was it. Yeah, it was.
It's I you know, and I find it hilarious. Like, I go up and the first like round or two, first half of class, it's fine, and then I realize like I'm literally there's drips coming off of my gi, not off of me. It's just, you know, we don't acclimatize to it very quickly, and you just gotta pound. You see me drinking excessive amounts of water if I visit your club, it's because I'm dehydrating rapidly.
Well, that was actually one thing that I was kind of like fearing coming in here. Was I was like I remember there's a few times where we come in to the mats and, you know, frozen mats kind of thing, because we were like the only ones at times, or the first ones at least, opening up the mats.
Yeah, sometimes when we first club in the evening, because my space here, we share it. We have, there's my club, there's an Aikido club, and there's actually another Judo club that used to train at the university, but the combat room at the university here was shut down, so we all share the same space, and it works out great. But sometimes you're the first class in the evening, and it's been snowing and it's -15 and the mats are just like concrete. And we do have it on a timer, so the heat kicks in, you know, about a half hour before we get here, but it still doesn't really take the sting out of it until you're on them for about 20 minutes. So the warm-up is brutal sometimes. Love being the last class of the evening. It's so warm.
This actually isn't near as bad as the old club used to be, though, I found. But yeah, actually, this song with that. So you've had to move a few times during the club existing. But you've always been with. Have you always been with these other clubs? When you were back there, when I was here.
Not all the time. I mean, I've been teaching, I guess. I've been teaching and attending other clubs. I mean, since I've been probably 19 years old. When I first came to university in St. John's, I did teach on my own because I like to do a little bit of different type of stuff. I mean, at that age, I was really interested in MMA, so I didn't just want to do pure judo or You know, I liked putting the little, everyone remembers the hairbringer gloves when you couldn't actually get MMA gloves. They were like boxing gloves with a little piece in on the palm. You know, so we used to like going in and doing a bit of MMA type stuff, and just, you know, we're teaching ourselves. We weren't, you know, pro MMA fighters, but we liked doing it. And so I used to do a bit of that stuff with the Ninja Jiu-Jitsu system. Remember, we used to do stick fighting. So I used to like doing a bit of that. So I couldn't do that at, you know, the regular judo club around. So I had my own club and I taught, and I still did judo at other clubs. I taught. I was at the university club training. Blair, who's with me now, we're together. He had a separate club at the time, Astra Judo. I used to train there as well, and then teach on my own, and just, you know, any knucklehead who wanted to come in and do like do sparring, do grappling with, you know, ground and pound and the gloves on, or, you know, do stick fighting and all kinds of really dumb stuff. We used to do that, and learned over time that it really hurt, and that it hurts more the older you get. But yeah, I mean, I taught at the university. I taught at various gyms I worked at when I was doing some personal training for work. You know, I had a gym, a former business that you know, never really worked out with my partner at the time. I was kind of short-lived, and then ended up. We were with you. We were at. We rented a space. That's when we started this this cooperative thing. Back when, you know, you were training with us. Prior to that, were you with me when we trained at the sports center, the Newfoundland Labrador Sports Center, that new Republic Jiu-Jitsu trains there now. They use it.
Okay, yeah. I think when I first met you, like, it came out once, and it was a bit of a way out, and it was at a gym more downtown that.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, I used to
like
teach
at the Max or something like that.
Yeah, and I was hired there as a personal trainer at a place, Max, and they had a couple of dojos, and they were really trying to push a martial arts program, and then I left that position, and then of course moved the club when I left there. So it's bounced around a bit, but we've been really solid now with this location for 3 years, and then the location prior to that, we were with the same cooperative group of people, just at a different location. And the only reason we left there was because the gym that we rented the space from was sold to a new owner, and the new owner wanted to turn that into a clinic. So we just got booted out for no fault of our own, just because they had different plans for it. And then
this is a good place. I mean, the mat space is bigger. You know, it's a really nice open spot for a martial arts club. So I mean, I think it kind of worked out better for you, to be honest.
It did.
Yeah.
It's great. Really love it. Since I came here, started a kids class. You know, my son started getting interested in it, just seeing me coming and going, and coming up and watching classes. So between my son, Blair's grandkids, and Jimmy's kids, and then it just snowballed. Like, I never advertised at all. I just started teaching my kid and children of people in the club, and then all of a sudden it's like, I got 6 students, and I got 10, and then and now I got, you know, 16 to 20 any given class of 6 and 7-year-olds.
Yeah, I was following, and I remember you saying, I'm going to start doing kids classes because, you know, my kid's old enough now, and, you know, everyone, you know, Jimmy and you and everyone else kind of had kids around that age. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So then I remember you posting pictures, and there was like a bunch of them. And I'm like, how many kids do you guys have? Like, it's like everyone, all the friends, I guess.
It's overwhelming sometimes. I mean, I'll admit it. Like, you know, and I got a good background in coaching and stuff, but like teaching that age there's days when they're not listening. They're not being bad. They're being kids, and it gets overwhelming. It gets frustrating, but they're having fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, I'm not training them at that age to be Abu Dhabi champions. So I just want them to have a good time and not get hurt, and hopefully start to really enjoy it. So when time comes to really take the training serious, that they still really love it. And right now they do. They walk away with a smile. They think it's fun. That's, you know, job well done in my mind.
And that's what I've had friends now. I mean, with a lot of my friends that aren't in martial arts, I'm kind of getting to know them as the martial arts guy. So a lot of guys with their kids, you know, come to me with questions about looking for clubs, and I always tell them, I'm like, first thing is, you know, just make sure it's a safe school that, you know, it looks out for their well-being and that they have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, that's beyond that, you know, they're 7 years old, you know, they don't need to be start training for world champs right at 7.
No,
like,
we get them run around. I mean, I run the class based on their developmental age. I mean, there's certain attributes they can develop at that age, and there's certain ones they can't, and it's a waste of time. I don't need to do really complex techniques. We teach them simple throws. I get them playing a couple of games that I've learned from various instructors. I've learned a lot from Jeff. I've learned a lot from some wonderful judo people in that. Tracy and Ron Angus in the Burlington area. They run an amazing judo club. I haven't actually been to. I know they run an amazing judo club because they've been here and they've taught me. And they've both competed at the world level in judo. And they're level 4 and level 5 NCCP coaches respectively, and I've done courses with them, learned some great stuff that I've integrated into my kids' Jiu-Jitsu class. And like I said, you keep them safe, and they have fun, and they learn a bit, and they learn fundamental skills that will turn into the ability to do Jiu-Jitsu later on down the road.
Yeah.
But and they know the moves. They know a basic throw. They know a Sotogiri. They know the positions. They know Niambelli. They know mount. They know the guard. They know the fundamentals of what to do, and they start to play with it. I mean, I play a game with them. I call it toe tag, or toe wrestling, and I learned that from Tracy Angus. I didn't make it up. She taught me that one. And they grapple. They grab onto each other, and they're on the ground like they're rolling. But all they're trying to do is touch each other's toes. And I had a bit of a groundbreaking moment with them a couple weeks ago. They were doing this, and they'd all run away from each other and run around each other, and they weren't actually grappling. I said, okay. And I showed them the positions, and I said, can you grab their toes from the belly? Yeah. Can they grab yours? And it's like, well, no, I can hold their arms, and talk them through the positions. And then I watch them when they're rolling, and the kids are pulling guard and trying to sweep, and they're wrapping up an arm almost like a triangle, but they don't know it's a choke, but they're wrapping up the arm with their leg so the person can't grab them. We're like, wow, this is brilliant. I should do this with the adults.
I know a lot of adults that don't like the toes being touched.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
You're in the wrong sport, man.
Yeah. Kind of been touching on it through this interview. St. John's, or just like Newfoundland in general, it's not a really big community for Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, there's a lot of clubs here, and it's doing really well. But like for your club's like, geez, almost tripled since I was here. So what do you think? How do you keep that going? Like really in a smaller community that it's not. There's not a lot of big MMA clubs here, or
Yeah, it's tricky because I mean, I've had the conversation with people before, and I think part of it is, there's a certain carrying capacity when you come into the club and you see 4 people. It's not that attractive to stick around because it's, there's not, the energy isn't in the room. When you get to a certain number, now my classes are always at a good number, usually in the teens. Very rarely I have a class with less than 10 people. It's always 12, 14, 16 people. And when someone new comes in, they see that and they're like, oh yeah, cool. There's a good vibe here. It's energetic, and they stick it out. So it's really funny. Now that we have a strong club, it's easier to grow. And when we were in the beginning and struggling to keep members, it was hard because not everyone came on the same night, and you'd have classes where every now and then you get 8 or 10 people, and it was great. And most times it was like 5 or 6, and it was really hard to attract new people in because of course they come in and it's. You've been at classes when it's small, and it gets boring faster. It doesn't have the same energy,
Yeah,
and,
the people that are there are the ones who are very dedicated.
Yeah,
right?
very dedicated. And I think as a whole, all the clubs around here are getting stronger. Republic has always had a strong presence here. They're the original BJJ club here. They really are. Greg Murphy, who trains now in Toronto, and. He would have been the first blue belt. He came here. He's a blue belt under Wagney, I guess. And he came here and he started Republic. Even prior to that, I was doing my own thing doing jiu-jitsu. The Brennans, Don and Jerome Brennan, if you ever met them, they were working with Bill Stoyles. Bill is trains with Greg up in Toronto. Greg and Bill are both brown belts, and they kind of were. And they'd have to speak to that on how it all came together. I don't know their total history, and I'd be speaking out of turn if I did, but mean, I know Greg was like the first blue belt here, and he kind of was the, became the de facto head instructor of Republic, and then Paul took it over when he left, and Paul went on and got his black belt a year to 2 years ago. I don't know, I can't remember exactly when he got it, but he's had it for a while now, and it's grown. And I remember, and I mentioned to you the other day, I remember when they brought a blue belt in for a seminar. Back in the late 90s, there was I don't know if it's the same guy. We had the conversation with Steve Burgess, who's at the base in Petawawa now. The name rings a bell with me, and I'm 99% sure it was him. And if you're watching this, you can confirm it to me that it was you that came here and taught a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu seminar as a blue belt. And I actually wasn't there, but I did a grappling tournament not long after that, and my prize for winning was a videotape of that seminar. So, and I still, if you're watching it and it was you, I still do my arm bars from guard the way you taught in that video. So thank you.
I'll send him a message tonight. I totally forgot. I'll send him a message tonight and make sure we get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, because
that would be cool.
I'm assuming there was only very few guys by the name of Steve Burgess with blue belts in Jiu-Jitsu back in the late 90s in Canada. So if it was you, I thank you, because I do actually still use stuff I learned from that video way back when. Still today, it's some of my go-to stuff that's just become ingrained. So I'll thank you for the third time.
But but like, I guess on the note of dedication, you really have to be like dedicated and really kind of push the club to keep it going out here, right? Like I see on posts all the time that there's someone would be like, hey, because bad weather or whatever, I'm going to be a little late or something, and who's coming out tonight, or and it's kind of like everyone kind of feeds off each other, like, oh, I'll make it if you can make it.
And that happens. And sometimes it's just impossible because there's 8 feet of snow in front of the door, and it's like, okay, stay home. Or the roads are just, it's impossible. But most times, we try to make an effort. I balance that on the side of safety and liability. I mean, if there's warnings from the police to stay off the road, if the buses aren't running, it's like, okay, guys, like I reasonably can't tell you that you have to come. Occasionally, then myself and Dave and some of the senior guys will sneak in anyway, and we'll just do it ourselves. But I won't force people out, because I don't want someone going off the road, getting in an accident and beating up their car, or worse, getting injured because they're trying to make it to Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, we always joke, where are your priorities? But, we're teaching people to stay safe and defend themselves. So putting them in a car accident, I think, kind of is would be the complete opposite of that. So we try to, to manage that as best we can. But we get to train a fair bit. 4 classes a week is what's on the schedule. Get the occasional extra roll in during the week with, I try to get in with Jimmy or Dave when I can, and just come in and roll. Because, I find, when I'm the odd man out at class, I don't get to train as much because I took the responsibility to be the instructor. So when I don't have a partner, I don't bust anyone out of a group, make them sit on the sideline so I can train. So I don't always get to train as much as some of the guys in the club, and I like to get
doing the other side of training, right? The philosophy side of it,
which doesn't burn as many calories, unfortunately. So I like to do both. But that's just part of it. I mean, that's part of growing the club. There's days, when you're the instructor, you have to take a back seat to your students in terms of, who's getting priority. And if there's people on the mat who don't know what they're doing, and I'm off drilling and not helping them, then they're not getting what they're paying for. They're not getting to learn Jiu-Jitsu, and they're not going to come back. So the days that I don't get to train, but I get to help other people, then fine. I'll find some other time, whether it's in the mornings before I go to work with someone, or after class, or I can get any one of my purple belts to step up and teach classes sometimes, and I'll just be in the class. And that's good sometimes too. I just get to not be in charge, sit back, let Blair teaches at least once a week, and Jimmy and Dave will teach for me occasionally, and they're very talented, and they got their own. I taught them, but they have their own style. They have their own perspective on stuff. They do their own techniques. They do stuff they got lots of stuff they do way better than me, and it's awesome to watch them show it, because there's little things they're tricking me on, and I'm like, okay, I have no idea what you're doing, and they got to show me.
That's the ploy on how you get them to give up their secrets,
Yeah,
right?
oh, you
like,
need to teach class.
Yeah. Oh, you know,
Teach
maybe,
that to everybody. And they show me, right? You know.
Yeah. Tournaments. So you were talking about this tonight with the group. I guess being on the island here, there's not really a big scene for tournaments, right? You don't have big tournaments.
It's not big. People try. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't knock anyone because
No.
people try. You know, Foley's are always putting off tournaments, and they've always reached out to me when they have one and invite our club, and we try to scrap together as many people as we can to go. I mean, but it is what it is. We have a small community of people here, and I've seen that in Judo too. But you know, we're talking about Jiu-Jitsu. We'll stick to that. You know, we have very limited amount of people who are training and competing. I mean, if I was going to make a guess, there's probably 200 people doing Jiu-Jitsu in Newfoundland, realistically, amongst my club, the clubs that the Foleys have, the clubs that you know, Republic, and then some of the places outside. The guys are training. There's like 3 or 4 of them training together.
Yeah.
So we're limited in our numbers, and I think where it's going to change, and I could be totally wrong, is with the kids. We're all teaching kids programs now. We're bringing up younger people. I mean, I was 28, 27, I don't know, when I started BJJ. Like, I was doing Judo prior to. I'd competed in Judo since I was a teenager. But realistically, to be in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you know, and like a lot of us, I guess, out there, you were past your athletic competitive stage of life. You know, you still want to compete. I mean, I'm 36. I'm fine. I'd love to do a tournament, but I'm not 18. And a lot of us were like that. So, you know, we had families and jobs, and, you know, were pursuing professional things, and didn't have the luxury to just train and focus on competition like we did, and like I did in Judo when I was younger. So there's not as many people out there who are, we'll say, ranked, like, you know, your blue belts and purple belts, on average are in their upper 20s, early mid-30s.
Yeah.
But it's starting to change. Obviously, this happened a lot quicker in Ontario and Quebec and some of the larger places, bigger cities, who had, you know, black belt instructors move in there in the late 90s. But we're just starting to get the first generation of kids who've been kids and young teens who started jiu-jitsu early, who are getting blue belts as, you know, 17-year-olds, and who are going to be purple belts and brown belts in their early 20s. And I think in the coming years, we'll see a much, you know, probably within 5 years, we'll see a much stronger competitive scene here with more tournaments, more belts in the tournaments. See a tournament here usually, it's a lot of white belts and a couple of blue belts, and that's it. And that's largely because there hasn't been other ranks. I mean, you know, there was a point, you know, there was a point at that with blue belts where there was like 4 of us. And that's, you know, in purple belts. Like, when I got my purple belt, I was, you know, one of, off the top of my head, you know, like 4 in the province. And then now brown belt, same thing. I mean, there's 1 black belt. There's myself, Kyle Pollitt, and Labrador. There's another club. I'm Labrador. Kyle Pollitt, he's a brown belt. Novi now brown belt. Teaches a club in Lab City. But there was myself, and there was Kyle, and there's now Jason Foley, and there's Brian Dix, who's at Republic.
Well, the fact that
you know, there's very limited.
Yeah,
like, I know I can list everyone who has a belt
all.
over blue, no problem.
Yeah.
So when you go to a tournament and it's like, well, you know, how come there's no purple belt division? It's like, well, because Mark is working and John had to take his kids to hockey, but you know, literally by the time you get to the end of one hand, it's like, well, there's all your purple belts. Yeah. You know, one of them's over there, the rest of them are, one guy, you know, the rest of them are working or taking care of their kids, and that's it. Like, there's not a big pool. So, but I think that's going to change, you know. You know, a lot of these young guys who are starting now, I mean, they'll be purple belts and brown belts at an age well before I ever started. So,
and that's
that'll
one
make a
thing.
difference.
That's one thing I'm seeing across the board. Like, you know, having now traveled across Canada and seeing tournaments, you know, all over the place. Kids always, the kids divisions always, there's more kids than there are adults. Always. You know, a successful tournament is one that has, you know, kids divisions.
Yeah.
Because you'll have more kids coming out than you will
Absolutely.
adults. And that's the future, really, right? Like, is of really getting a good community going. Like even BC, like I went out to when I was competing out in BC, we go over to Vancouver to a regional tournament, and I remember one tournament they had a brown belt division, and that was big news, and we were all there wanting to make sure we can crowd around and watch the brown belt fight, and then we went to the provincials. Provincials, this is in almost like a stadium, I think it was, and big thing. This is like the biggest tournament I've been to. There's a lot of people there. They had a couple black belts in that, and it was almost like the rest of the tournament stopped to watch. And I think there was only 2 matches, and that was only because Johnny Grippo was in town because he was doing a seminar and heard that there was, that provincials was going on, and someone asked him to come out. So he said, sure, and there was him and then I think maybe 2 other black belts, and that was the black belt division. But everyone's like, Johnny Grippo is here at this, in this little.
But it's
tournament.
such a big deal to have a black belt division in a tournament. I mean, unless it's one of the IBJJF tournaments, you don't get it, right? I mean, I remember when I was, I think I was a blue belt at the time, 2009, 2010, around there. I mean, anyway, but it was not that long ago. I was in Toronto, and I went to a tournament in Toronto that Extreme Couture put off. And they had nobody for my division. And that was in Toronto. So, I mean, and now when people I know go to tournaments in Toronto, there's dozens of people signing up for the division. So to see how big it's shifted there in the past number of years, I mean, that was in Toronto. I mean, they had the biggest scene in the country, bar none. And they could, like, I got my money back because they're like, well, we have no one for you. I was like, what? Like, really? I'm a blue belt and I'm, 195 pounds. Like, I'm a fairly average. It wasn't like I was this like super heavyweight or a little tiny guy. Like, I was just an average weight blue belt. I was like, oh, really? There's nobody? And there wasn't. And I ended up not competing because there was no one in my division. And now, I mean, that would never happen in Toronto. So you see how fast it's blown up in the larger cities. I imagine we'll catch up. Not at the same volume, obviously. We're never going to have the amount of people here in Jiu-Jitsu as they do in Toronto. Like, it's not reasonable with the population. But percentage-wise, I think it'll catch up.
Yeah. I mean, it's it comes down to us always still trying to make it out to those tournaments and get the kids classes, and that's my thought is, I mean, always support your local scene, man, and it'll keep growing, right? If all you're going to do is just come out on the weekend to roll, and then wonder why there's not more people coming out, well, you're not really helping.
We've all done it. I'm guilty of it. I've done it. I'm like, I'm not going to go to the tournament because there's no one's going to be there. And then you think about that after, like, well, that doesn't make sense. Because if everyone got to take responsibility for that and show up. And we've all done it. I've done it. I know other guys have done it. I mean, I've dumped on people for it, and then I've done it myself. So it's one of those things that you kind of got to take that responsibility to be a part of it, even if it is small. That's the only way it's going to grow.
Yeah, and that goes back to just running the club and doing what you do. That's like, I can see from the 4 years I've been away, that the club's grown so much. I mean, there was no kid class back when I was here, and there was only a handful, like literally, at one, this is everyone, 5 people, 6 people, maybe 7, on a good night. Now tonight was almost 20 people. It seemed like there was a lot of people out there.
There's like 16 or 17 people on the mat. And it was good.
It's growing, and I like seeing that. I like coming back to the club and seeing old friends, seeing the differences and all the changes, the family growing, the community growing. But I also like the these kind of clubs where it's not a huge brand kind of marketing, right? Where it's more.
No, well, I mean, I work full time. Like I'm a real estate agent. I'm not a full-time jiu-jitsu coach. And I've had, and prior to getting into what I do now, I mean, I've always had, a job or multiple jobs. Like jiu-jitsu was my hobby that turned into something a little bit more. But it's realistically, it's not a business. I can honestly say I've never really made money at this. You know, I've taken the odd bit of money out for gas and expenses, you know, when I'm doing something for the club, running the tournament. You know, when I take a guest instructor out to dinner, I'll buy myself a steak and a pint, put it on the club, no problem. But I've also, and not only me, other people in the club, who, you know, I gotta, you know, give them credit. People who've helped me build the club, like we've kicked in our own money to pay the rent at the end of the month because there was none coming in. So, you know, myself and others, you know, the senior guys in the club who've been around, I mean, if not for having that level of interest in just doing it or keeping it going for our own sake, it wouldn't have, because there was times the money wasn't coming in to cover off just the basic expenses of keeping the doors open. Because again, it was never a business. Never paid my rent. It was just something to do.
It's like a study group, right? It's what it is well, everyone's
here
for love.
We're a club. We're not a business.
Yeah.
You know, we're a community-based club, and anyone's free to come in, and you know, we do what we can and try to put a little bit of money away. So I mean, and we're lucky that we're able to do that now, so that, you know, we got our rainy day fund. We got money to help people go to competitions or to help offset the cost of bringing someone in for a seminar. But we didn't have that years ago. We you know, we you know, had to count our pennies and pay our rent.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, it's awesome seeing it grow. It's been a blast being here. It's been a blast being back on the mat with you guys. You know, when I'm back in Canada again, I'll be sure and
yeah,
come
you're
back
always welcome, man. Anyone is.
Yeah.
But especially you.
But thanks for having me again. It's been awesome. That's from now, guys. And this is my last interview for Canada. So I guess next time you'll be seeing me in London. All right. Till next time. See you on the mats. Boost.
Take care.